Hi David, so glad we're giving this a go for an audience. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. If you could just spend a minute or so sharing a little something about yourself and we'll go from there.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for doing this. This is great. So just a little bit about myself. My name is David. I've done quite a few things throughout my life here. I think the most basic, best way to introduce myself that could benefit and help this entire process is I am a person just like everybody else, right? I'm a person that was born into this world, that has gone through this entire, whatever you want to call it, brainwashing system, and at some point was able to pull myself out of it, which is, I think, the bigger message that we're going for. So I'm just like everybody, and there's really no big difference between me and anyone else. I think the bigger underlying picture is that I was able to stop where I was inside of this entire illusion and put the work in. And it really comes down to that, putting the work in to pull myself out. So that's sort of the simple thing, aside from I play music here and there and I teach a lot. So
great. Yeah. The deconditioning is a lot of work, and it is great when I come across people who've also done some hardcore deconditioning. I think we're going to cover quite a few subjects. I mean, knowing us for sure. I want to start with, let's call it flat earth. We both don't like the term. And how it's the foundation and not the ceiling of one's path, and that the ball earth's like a spell. It's like an actual magic spell. What would you say on those sort of topics?
Yeah, this idea of words and language and spelling, the word spelling is rooted in the word spell. So the idea of specific words meaning specific things and using those words correctly and just kind of moving them around and changing them so that they're more clear and, more importantly, more aligned with truth. Because I think that's the big power in this whole, whatever you want to call it, illusion matrix that we're in, is truth, right? Truth coming in absolutely dissolves everything. So that's sort of been my little kind of go-to, is how much is this aligned? How much are my words aligned with truth?
Sure. And with this sort of spell, this ball earth spell, people are like super conditioned by it. One very short story, I was with two astrophysics Swiss guys recently, and we had a 3-hour debate. It got very loud and raucous. Mm-hmm. And they were just writing equations down on paper, and they just resorted to ridicule. It's absolutely crazy. And what I didn't even use the words flat earth, because you and I both know the stigma attached. And then I was talking about the word cosmology, cosmological model, and they turned around and said, you're one of those flat earthers.
Yeah. So here's my take on that. The idea of where we are is sort of the big goal here, right? And trying to really explain where we are. And let's just look at the words flat earth, right? So the place that we are, this realm that we are, the earth, which is rooted in the word land, actually isn't flat, right? So there are huge cavernous oceans that go down many miles, and the mountains go. So this plane that we're on actually isn't flat. The water is level, right? The water is level.
It's also not flat. It's waves.
Right, and there's waves, exactly. So my belief is those two words, I believe there was a program inserted within the system maybe 10 plus years ago, because the ones that created this entire spell knew that this was coming. So when you have those two words, flat earth, it's the easiest and quickest way to explain what people are going through and noticing and learning about where we actually are, but it doesn't actually match up with the reality of where we are, because we're actually inside. We're in a terra. We're in a
realm.
A realm. We're inside of a terrarium, right? So it's not that we're on Earth, we're in a terrarium, right? And it's interesting because it's the opposite. What the program is, the conditioning and the spell, is literally the opposite of what it actually is, right? And so using those words, you got to be really careful about using words, because I think what happened is the insert that was put into the program surrounding the words flat earth, there's some spell involved where you notice when people hear that are
they shut off
in the spell. Well, not only do they shut off, but there's all of these sort of reactions that come out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, the anger, the downplaying, the condescending, the shaming, all of this stuff is within the program.
I believe
right?
this is highly possible. This is a ritual that's been done. They've put a lot of magic into the Ball Earth model, and they've also put a lot of magic into the flat Earth community, shall we say.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. What I would say is it's not really about flat or sphere. It's really about where we are. And it's not only about that, it's about how this reality actually works. And more so, or as much as, how the sky clockwork works. But we'll get onto that a bit later.
Right.
What I would say is without, these people who are on the ball, without this sort of flat Earth, let's just use those words for ease of use, ease of understanding for the audience, people are really at a really big disadvantage. Because without knowing you live in a divine realm, it's really going to hinder you. So like, if I'm chatting to some ball guy, I'm having a debate, halfway through they'll say something like, oh, so you believe in God, or so you're religious then? And I'll say something like, no, but we do live in a magical divine realm. And they freak out. It just stuns them. It's like a stun gun. They just get frozen. They don't know how to deal with that sentence.
One thing that I would hope for and wish for, and this is something that sort of has been coming up into my consciousness lately, is that anyone who is broken out of the spell, right? And so I don't want to use the term flat earther, but anyone who's broken out of the spell and started to pull the spell out of their conscious mind, we have to realize that a majority of the people are living within that spell.
Sure.
Right. And so what I see a lot of times is the ones that are in the spell that believe in this whole, astrological universe thing, the program of the condescending behavior that we were talking about is embedded within there. So I think for people that have pulled themselves out, there really needs to be a sense of compassion involved and understanding and knowing that they're inside of something that they are not necessarily A, aware of, and B, can't necessarily control it. Right? So they have to put in that work of getting to that spot of going through the cognitive dissonance, right? That idea that I'm believing two things, because we all went through that, right? I went through that myself, where you're pulling yourself out and then you have that inner turmoil with yourself. It's basically yourself and your mind fighting itself.
Yeah.
And so, but if they haven't gone through that, I think us that have pulled ourselves out really need to look at the idea that they're in it and to have some compassion for it and not play into this whole idea of bashing each other, right? And because you see that a lot online.
Sure, it's crazy.
It's like the idea of the globetard and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's funny on some level, but they are in a spell.
Yeah, I was having it out with these astrophysicists it was in a beer garden in Bern, Switzerland, and they were analytically smart, but it got a bit rowdy a few times, and luckily there was quite a bit of female energy there to calm things down. One of them got quite insulty and like, I'm not the sort of guy who's going to take that for too long, and it just got a bit crazy and out of hand.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. I mean, I think that we are all evolving right now, right? There's a big evolution happening. So, when we have conversations like this, like we're having, it's sort of sharing where we are on an analytical and cognitive level, right? So we're sharing with our words, they're coming out into the world through the computer systems and into each other. Not only is that happening, but the idea of us being a hive is happening as well. So when we align ourselves with truth and we start evolving, it starts to spread throughout, right?
Yeah.
So
what I would say with this sort of, I'm going to use the words flat earth just for ease of listening for the listeners, is that I get to visit, and a lot of people visit me, a lot of these, people awake to these lies, cosmological lies, flat earth. Nearly everyone is a creative person. Nearly everyone is into, whether they're into dance or into music or nearly everyone's creative. And I believe a lot of these people deep in the matrix, they can't even put their mind into the flat earth model to even contemplate it. They can't even do the mental gymnastics.
Right. Well, here's my opinion on that, is that when you're born, you're fully functioning, right? And then so mostly everybody has gone through the brainwashing system at a very early age. And at first, say you're 5, I call the school system the brainwashing system. So once you're 5, you go into it and it's slowly suppressing that to the point where it's basically like a massive hand coming down into the child saying, quiet, don't think, don't do anything creative, and We're just going to fill your mind with logic and fill your mind with brainwashing and fill your mind with spells.
Yeah.
And there's a point where the children give up, is really what it is. They give up and they say, oh, I'm just going to fall back.
Yeah.
And then they become sort of a passenger in their life experience.
They go home,
right?
And the parents put toxic food on the table, and they sort of threaten them and say, you better eat that. And the child's sitting there going, I love you guys, and I know my body's telling me this food is terrible, I'm not even hungry, and you're forcing me to eat this complete shit. It's just pure trauma for children, pure trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because the trauma thing could really be an entire other segment, but the idea of those traumatic experiences is where the most amount of whatever you call the spell can enter, and there are hundreds of different spells going on, right? Maybe even thousands in this place, but those traumatic scenarios is where the spells have the easier access into the being and into the conscious mind.
I don't want to step away from cosmology too much at this juncture, but these parents, they actually give their children away to mind control camps. They call them schools, but the parents even buy them the uniforms from their own money. And even buy cars and gasoline to drop them off there and pick them up. I mean, you really could, when you step back and think about it, you really couldn't make this shit up.
On some level, I can see that it's a handed down spell, though, because those parents are within the spell, and then their parents, all the way down the line. And so it's just unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, but right now, in this moment, in this time, is the time to really put in the work to pull us out. It's time to be pulled out.
Because as we'll get to later, there might not be as much time as what people think. I just want to go back to the divine magic realm. When you talk to these people in the Matrix, whatever labels we want to use, they sort of go, "Oh, you're religious," and you say, "No, but I believe this is a divine realm." And they really freak out and they get stunned. And you can say things like, well, look at how water turns into a snowflake. I mean, if you watch that in slow motion, that's not random. That's some really divine high consciousness code. Or you look at flowers with the golden fee, the Fibonacci sequence. And these sort of atheist scientism people who are under a big spell, they get stunned. They can't actually answer you. It just sort of freezes them.
I mean, I really don't want to give excuses for humanity, but it really comes down to that for me in the way that I've experienced it, because when you're under that spell and you're completely deactivated, right? And so a lot of people go down the path of there is no God and there is no divine creation here and there is no magic happening. And this whole entire place was built and created by something that is way, way beyond humanity's understanding, like our conscious mind. There's no way we're ever going to get close really to the magnitude of what we're in, because our minds and brains and consciousness can only go so far, right? But with that being said, at the same time, we're linked to it, right? We're linked to it at a microscopic level, right? And so becoming awakened and a part of what this whole realm is part of the journey.
Sure.
And I think that it's in alignment for anyone at any given time that they choose, right?
I would say breaking the bull spell is, I sort of said it at the start, it's the foundation of a human being's spiritual path and not the ceiling. It's the boat to get in and not the destination. Because all over social media, people are like, I'm awake, I'm woke, the earth's flat. No, this is the start. This is the very, very start. This is when you can really get the wheels moving. And if you really integrate it and really live in a divine realm, I mean, magic comes alive like you wouldn't believe. You've got to really test it and take it to the gym every day. But it's not the destination. This is like square one. We should have been here when we were 2 years old, but it's taken us 30, 40, 50 years.
I think if we want to say there are thousands of spells, right, in this place that we're in, casted by whoever's casting them, we can call them a lot of different names, but the Ball Earth idea is the largest, greatest, most powerful spell, I believe, that's happening right now, right? And so the idea and the concept of a lie, right? And so the lie, it's actually a massive weapon, right? And so people don't really get that, right? And I've been involved in being lied to a lot, and especially when it comes down to this idea of where we are, we've all been lied about it. but it's huge, right? It's a huge weapon that's being used on humanity. And in my experience, you can go off on tangents in any kind of field. And so I did some sound stuff in the past, and there's a lot of people that are looking for this healing sort of thing and in all these different types of avenues. But if you haven't broken the biggest spell that exists in this place, it's going to have no power at all. You have to be able to break that spell, right?
And there are people going to see these gurus around the world. A lot of them are talking about galaxies and black holes and space. These conscious festivals, I mean, they're all over America and Europe. They're full of globe symbolism, galaxy symbolism. The spell is everywhere.
Right. And so I think that there is definitely a quote unquote intelligence behind the spell, because they are in a way steering these things where they're saying, oh, okay, well, we'll go and allow this to happen. We'll allow these spiritual sort of things to happen as long as they're not connected to breaking the biggest spell that exists, which is the globe. So that's what I see happening. And once you break that spell, you start to become activated lightning speed.
It's really quick. I've had a lot of people come to see me over the years. I've had people come to see me with Kundalini awakenings from this awakening, from breaking this spell. I've known people who have left their husbands or wives in a flash, completely changed their lives. I've known people who are on drink and drugs, who've automatically just healthy, bringing divinity into their life. I've seen some massive transformations due to breaking this spell, more than breaking any of the other spells put together.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, some people are probably thinking, well, why? What does it do? And where does it lead? And to me, really what it is, it comes back to this idea of truth. When you have truth start to flow through your body and flow through your consciousness, it literally starts activating you automatically, right? And it starts to, I call them barnacles. And so when you kind of travel through, and when a boat travels through the ocean, they get these barnacles attached. And once the truth starts pouring through you, it's just knocking all these barnacles off left and right. And then it starts spewing out of your mouth as if it's clearing the path of the world of lies. It's amazing.
This goes back to Tibetan high tantra called Kala Chakra. And it isn't to do with the chakras, it's called Kala Chakra, ancient Tibetan tantric method to do with a flat cosmology. And what you do, you bring the cosmology inside and then it pours out of you and you evolve and transform through it. So what we're all doing, us YouTube conspiracy guys, or whatever you want to call us lot, we're actually doing a high form of ancient tantra because we're breaking out of a false cosmology from the inside.
Right, yeah, and we're witnessing the power of this. I mean, I could see it in my own life. You know, there are people that are really either choosing the path to not want to awake and not want to wake up, or they're just really stubborn, or they're so deep inside that it's going to take a little bit extra cracking. But I really see it like popcorn,
yes, like
right?
popcorn.
And so it just starts popping, boom, boom.
I know people who are actually going through the wake up. I mean, they hang out with me, and I see in their eyes they're going through it. But when they go back to their family and their job and their friends, they're not ready to come out yet. I know quite a few people like this. They haven't fully come out the closet because that is going to be a big. There's no way back. They either do it or they don't do it.
Yeah, I've definitely lost some friends. It's been, you know, one of those things. But once you become activated and the truth starts coming through you and flowing through you, the idea of sorrow and loss just goes away. Sure. I just don't experience those types of those feelings, right? And so I wish everybody the best in their journey. Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. This is like, you know, automatons, non-player characters in the Matrix. You know, I'm getting to a point now, and I'm pretty much a compassionate guy. If a lot of these people in these villages who are just, they're not really here, if they all perish, I'm not going to take on the pain, David. I'm just not going to take it on. And it's not through denial. Right. I'm just not going to feel the pain. And I don't know what that means, but there's a lot of humans here and they're not real. They're not really here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because I've gone through that before, this whole idea of loss and sorrow, and I felt it, and it was real, and it was almost as if it was a nightmare on some level. So going back to the idea of truth, I could feel it in my being that I will exist forever. I could feel it in my being. And so, not to cut ahead, but I think this is really part of, or maybe the big reason why there's about to be a reset. I think the reset is absolutely important, because there are people that have really come to the dead end, is what it is. It's a dead
the
end.
souls are just getting
This
smaller
idea,
and more shrunk, and they're just programmed beings. More than a frog, more than an ant. They're actually highly intelligent beings, but massively programmed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to say, I've said it many times before, but I just can't say it enough. We're all in trauma because we don't know exactly where we are. But conscious trauma is so much better than subconscious trauma.
Right. Well, because then you go from the passenger to the driver. And that's absolutely important. It's linked with creativity. It's linked with you taking the power of your own experience and start to drive.
We were talking the other day, David, about two worlds splitting almost, where we were saying we walk down the road and it's like these people can't see us and we can't really see them. It's like very, very strange. It's like there's two different energy fields.
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting thing that I'm noticing for sure. Just briefly on my end, I'm walking around in the world and it's as if people are bumping into me, really. Like I'll just be walking and there's a lot of, oh wait, you're there, you're an actual thing that's in my way. Or it's kind of this interesting thing where I'm not necessarily flowing in the way that society is going, right? And I look at it as just this massive programmed, I was in the mall. Here's just a really quick example. I was in the mall. I went in the mall just really quickly to get one specific thing I needed, and the mall was the only place that had it. So I walk in, and it's just, I looked at this place in this way, because I used to go to the malls back in the day, and I'm looking in this place, and I'm like, this place looks and acts and feels like a giant ant trap, right? It's an ant trap, and people are going in there and they're like collecting all these things, and they're like buying all these things, and they're smelling all these smells, right? And then they're leaving their ant trap, the big massive mall ant trap, right, with their stuff, and bringing it back, and now they have less money, which is basically going to take them time to work to get that money back. It's just crazy.
Sure. And there's different aspects to this sort of lockdown matrix. People they get funneled into the mall. One I've realised, I've been in Germany a bit recently, is in these towns and villages, these people have these houses, and it's like they've built their own prison. They're mowing the lawn, they're cutting the grass with scissors at the edges so no grass goes onto the concrete. Their garages are like super tidy. So these people just potter around the house and the garden, keeping everything super, super, super tidy. And if they don't, they'll really stand out and everyone will talk about them. And I've watched this and I'm like, this is massively ill. This is like worse than a concentration camp. This is an illness, massive illness. And there should be people here healing them, talking to them. It's unbelievable.
I think on some level it's scary, right? And going back to the food idea, there's so many foods that have the poisons that are there to sort of subdue the mind, dumb down that mind so that it operates at a level that it actually can't start putting things together. Now, there's a grocery store by my house, right? And there's probably 5 things in the entire grocery store that I believe are edible. And you go in there and the entire place is full of just junk. And then you look at the people that are in there that are buying these things, and their bodies are just like, whoa, what's happening? It's really sad on some level. It's like a trap. It's really like being caught in this trap and not knowing
when their body has
out.
like these strange inflammations. I mean, people say, oh, these people are fat. Let's get a bit more detailed here. It's people with very strange inflammations and growths, very abnormal and asymmetric. So then these people look in the mirror and have some subconscious self-loathing and then run for the sugar again. And I don't know if many listeners have studied sugar. Sugar activates the brain very similar to cocaine. It's like super, super addictive. Very hard to come off sugar.
Right. Yeah, and one thing that I think is really sad when you know that and you realize that is how many children are given sugar. My son, he just doesn't get sugar. He's very aware, right? He knows about ingredients, and his mother and I both actually teach him about these things. So he'll be in any given grocery store with me, and we immediately go to the back and see how much sugar is in here. He doesn't eat candy, right? He's not being integrated in any way into this, because in my opinion, that whole sugar thing, where that leads when you get older, and now sugar is boring, so what kind of drugs can I get,
it's
right?
Up, down world
so
you're in.
Absolutely. You got to stop it right there when they're at that young age.
And with sugar, it's very much a candida food, so we all need candida in our gut, a little bit of it, but what sugar does, it multiplies candida, which is, again, creating what people call fat and growth. So people think fat people are like, oh, they've eaten too much pizza, but generally it's candida overgrowth, which is, sugar and gluten and stuff like that. But also with these people in the Matrix, I mean, they've been distracted by toxic purchasing. They've been distracted by this really crappy food. And we were talking the other day, they've been distracted by a whole host of things. We could be talking about salary, tax, politics, climate change, all these distractions. They're just getting hammered. It's quite hard to break the spell because there's so many spells being fired at them.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I call these pockets like cesspools in a way. If the river's flowing smoothly, that's one thing. The river's making its way to the ocean. But if you get trapped, there's all these different traps that you can get stuck in. And they're really, and I want to use in quotes, intelligently, right? Because it's not intelligent in the grand scheme of things, but they are intelligently designed that way. So you get stuck in these. The idea of politics, I mean, that idea is really basic. It's really simple. You get as close as you can to 50-50. 50-50 meaning half of the people have this idea, the other half have this idea. That's going to equal the most amount of conflict. The most amount of conflict. And so that's all it is. That's all it is. It's conflict engineering.
It's an I own ABC status. Everyone's running around trying to get the ABC status. I mean, in Germany, everyone's got to get the nice car and clean it. It's all about the car in Germany. It's really strange. It's all about the car. In England, it's a lot more about the house and the clothes. I mean, in America, what's the main thing there to own? It's house again, isn't it?
Well, this whole idea of freedom, right? The quote-unquote freedom and the house and the car and the quote-unquote white picket fence story, right? It's an absolutely trap that no one's ever going to get out of. I mean, it's engineered that way. It's like, okay, well, come this way and then you will be free because you have all these opportunities. And it's a total dialogue. It's not real. It's a story that has been believed. And so people are trapped and living their entire lives believing that trap.
But then,
and then
people say to me, oh, but how do I get out? It's easy. I mean, recently I didn't have much money. I just went off living in my car. It wasn't even my car. I don't know whose car it was. And you just raise your vibration. I was living in the forests. I was living by the rivers and lakes in the Alps. I had an amazing time. And it didn't cost much money, You can do these things. I mean, what upsets me is there's so many grown men. I mean, there's grown women as well, but grown men are like, oh, Mark, I'm stuck. No, you're not. You're a grown man. Just walk the other way. It's that simple. It really is that simple. And people just have these mental blocks of staying within these distractions and staying within this pain. And you don't need to.
Yeah, it's this idea of comfort and then the fear of the elements. So it's like, oh, I'm afraid to be connected with nature because, I need a roof, I need the security, I need my insurance, I need all the stuff that keeps them locked. It's really locked in this state of quote-unquote comfort. And so get rid of these attachments little by little.
I don't have an address. It's like, it's great, I don't get post.
Yeah, and it's funny, neither do I, and people trip out on that. People trip out. Well, where do you live? You can't do this until you have an address. Blah, 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 blah.
I got a trick for you and the listeners. Someone phoned me up from England, someone in the Matrix. Oh, Mark, you've got to fill out a form. And I said, oh, I've got an anxiety disorder where I'm formophobic. I can't fill out forms. And they believed me. They said, I'm very, because in today's politically correct world, they were like, oh, I'm very sorry. Okay, we won't send you anything. They just tell them you've got an anxiety disorder and you can't fill out forms. Don't accept paperwork.
Yeah, don't do it.
Should we go back to a little bit about kids and climate change? I was in Zurich recently and I got some friends there and I found out there are teenagers now going around Zurich at night vandalizing and graffitiing cars, like big 4x4s, graffitiing them with things like, you don't care about the planet. So now you've got these kids coming out of mind control camps having a go at their parents because they've been mind controlled with the climate lies. So they've sort of weaponized the kids against their own families.
Yeah, what does that mean? I haven't heard that. But I think the bigger thing, from my opinion, it goes back to having the consciousness go into the passenger seat. And I think that's what's happening in general, is that when people are in the spell, or when they basically accept the spell, then their behaviors, I think there's I call it the mischief gang. You know, I don't want to go into calling these people the Jesuits or any of these terms that a lot of people don't understand, but I believe there is a mischief gang that is creating all this havoc in as many different ways as possible, and all different avenues and all over this place. And so once the spells have been taken into the people's consciousness and then the traumas happen, then those people are now put into the passenger seat and they're being driven around unconsciously on some level.
So they've got to the point where they can't drive themselves anymore.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And this mischief gang, this unseen mischief gang, you know, where are they? Where do they live? We don't know, but they're there because you can see their work.
Sure. What I would say with this matrix and with this mischief gang getting into everyone nearly with their crazy spells, for those that are aligned and have broken out, you're probably more powerful than what you think. I mean, you walk into a shopping mall or a street or a cafe or a restaurant, your vibrations really like zzz, because you're living in such a different universe. I mean, you look at the people, yeah, they got a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, everyone looks kind of the same, but do realize that your vibration is vibrating very differently to these people. And just play with that, because I'm not going to give you any examples. I just want people to be aware of that, because when you're vibrating at a very different vibration to the crowd who are running at a lower vibration, let's say, we can say that if they're on the fluoride and the toxic food and the TV, this can give you an edge. I'm not talking about power or manipulation or self-gain. It gives you an edge. And I want the listeners just to take that however they want and to play with that however they want.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And I would like to add just a little bit to that. When you start to see it, be a witnesser, as you're just witnessing it, and don't engage. And on top of that, don't judge it, because our minds are very powerful. Your thoughts are being projected. So when you're just witnessing something and you're noticing this separation happening, look at it for what it is. And the idea of moving into negativity, it's difficult for anyone in this place, because you see it as like, are you kidding me sometimes, right? I mean, I've had so many moments, I'm like, is this really what's happening? Is this really what I'm seeing? And it's like, and you can get caught into it. No. Just be in your own being and keep with that vibration and just witness. You don't have to engage, just witness as if you're watching a movie, or, you know.
Nice. I got a little list here. It was something I saw online earlier. Thought it'd be good for tonight. It's a little meme. It says how to become a zombie, and I'm just going to give off a little list, and we can all realise we all know people that actually do all of these. So the list is like this: listen to mainstream news, don't read, never question anything, eat GMOs and fast food, follow vaccination schedules, avoid nature, defend government corruption, drink fluoridated water, consume more than you need, support corrupt companies, don't exercise, buy things you don't need, watch TV and celebrity news. And we all know people that are like this. And this is insanity. Right. It's almost like we just need to stop everything. Stop driving, just stop. Because it's got to a point where it's got just too crazy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things about the idea of these things actually being bad for you, the way that they're presented has some kind of honor to them in the way that they're presenting them. And I'll just give you an example, like the idea of vaccinations, right? So the word vaccine has a whole story and dialogue that goes along with it. And so people that do these things, get these vaccinations, they say, oh, it's an honorable thing. This is what we have to do in our society, right? But the truth is, you're taking mercury and heavy metals and dead viruses, and you're injecting them into your body. I mean, that's really what it is. Now, is that honorable? Are those words honorable? No, but that's the truth.
It's unbelievable. It's really strange.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get onto some sort of reset talk a bit later, but we've all got relatives and friends or old friends in deep matrix. And we've talked about this a few times. I've been talking to this with a friend recently. And there's going to come a time where we're all going to have to just let them go. And it's okay. And we're going to have to be really strong. And we're going to have to start getting internally strong, like going to the gym. Because there's going to come a time where a lot of people you love or known for many years, I don't even know what I mean by this, they're just not going to make it. And you've got to make peace with that, and you've got to get rid of the sorrow. Because they're not going to make it. And you can sit there all day talking about flat earth and showing them flat earth videos and all the rest. It's too fucking late. And you just got to make peace with it. Because there's a lot of evolved people who are going to freak out. because some of their friends and relatives aren't going to make it, and they need to integrate that.
If there are those that are in that space where they're saying to themselves, maybe I am in this spell, maybe I am inside of something that I don't realize, and I want to look into it. And that's the biggest thing, looking into it and doing the work to pull yourself out. And so my quick opinion on that is, if you do want to prepare and move forward, and you absolutely have to start removing the spells from your consciousness. That's the number one thing, because you cannot move in the way that you're meant to and designed to move if you are surrounded and filled with spells.
Or you're spending all your weekends with relatives stroke friends who are all covered in these spells. You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to step into alignment. You might know the earth is flat. If you're hanging out with these people deep in the matrix, your vibration's not going to start flying, and you're not going to get into your alignment where you're going to be where you need to be and meet the right people you're meant to meet.
Right, absolutely. It's autopilot on some level. It's automatic, the way that your body starts to integrate truth once the spells are removed. I'm telling you, it's just mind-blowing. So there's hope for anyone who is on that end where they're still deciding for themselves, do I want to live in this spell, or do I want to get myself out?
These people deep in the matrix, they could put on BBC and Fox News tonight, oh, by the way, you all live in a divine magical realm, and it would just be like, oh, you seen the news tonight, Janet? It says we live in a divine magical realm, and the sky's a huge consciousness fractal clockwork giving us energy. Oh, that's nice, Jeffrey. What's for dinner tonight? It won't go in. It's just not going to go in, It's no point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm actually finding it, and this really doesn't come from an elitist point of view, because no one's better or worse than anyone, but I'm finding it harder and harder to do small talk with these people, because I'm just finding it draining and kind of pointless.
Yeah, like I said before, I think the way that I go through that is I just sit there and witness it. And I think this whole thing, this whole divine clockwork realm that we're in, it spans lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes before us, and it continues for lifetimes ahead of us, and we're just a part of the story. We're a part of the story. Our experience is part of the story, and everybody's individual stories are very important and very necessary for the collective story. And the ones that created this realm that we're in, that's also a massive story, and I guarantee this isn't the only realm like this, right? I'm sure there's an infinite number of realms like this. On some level, there's something to really, on a big level, really, there's something to be excited about, and what our experience is and what we're learning and what we're processing, because all of this is really just a mind-blowing experience. Life, experiencing all of this is it's going to be amazing, pretty awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw something today, and I was wondering what your views are on this. I mean, 10 years ago it was like, gay people, this is nice, accept them. Then it's like, oh, trannies, transsexuals, super nice, accept them, love them. And now I've started to see some articles like, oh, pedophiles, they're okay, that's what they're into, start to accept them. And this week, I can put it up on the screen at the moment, they're starting to say now, this is official universities and routers, I'll start to accept humans that identify as vampires. I mean, where's this going to end? I mean, this is just an abomination of craziness, is it not?
Yeah, so in the beginning, there was a creator, a prime source of creation, right? And every time the prime source of creation decided to incarnate, it learned the lessons that it wanted to learn, and then passed from being human and then went back to prime source of creation. So over time, there has been this desire from those incarnations to not want to go back, but to stay in this realm and continue to experience all of these desires. And over time, it's turned into illnesses because it's not connected with source. It's not connected with prime source of creation. And so the illnesses continually adapt their illnesses and become more ill and more. It's just totally out of hand.
In Brighton, in England, recently, a gay pride event, it's massive, biggest gay pride event in England. And the carnival, the street carnival, where they say, come on families, bring your kids. There are people walking down the road in like bondage, crazy, reenacting torturous sex, deviant, satanic, dark, repressed, strange, ill sexual stuff in the street, and everyone's waving flags saying this is something to be proud of. This for me is really, really kind of crazy.
It's mind-blowing because my mind doesn't really register what it is. It doesn't register what am I seeing. I just know that it's ill. I call it a sickness. And so I saw these drag queens reading to kids in I'm sure people have seen this online and just what am I watching? And then I'm also watching the parents sitting by just kind of smiling and watching their kids rolling around on the floor with these drag queens in library reading sessions. You talk about trauma, trauma. If I had that trauma when I was a kid, I would just be messed up. It's just, I'm a big advocate for helping kids and getting them through this without trauma. It's a massive illness, and I've seen so many problems arise from childhood trauma off the charts. And I don't really know sometimes what to do, but all I can do is do my best to protect. It's just protection, right?
Yeah. I can't even see my children because of the work I've done online, so I'm seen as the crazy guy who should be kept away from the children, so it can even go that way.
The illness has really integrated itself into everything, this whole government system, the whole court system, the whole police system. The illness has integrated itself into everything. I think going back to, well, how do we get through it? What do we use? And I'll tell you right now what it is. It's the truth. You use the truth. Period. Absolutely.
Too right. It gives you power, it gives you energy, it gives you an edge. You just wave it like a sword, an etheric, esoteric sword, and you use it. You don't even have to say anything. You just vibrate it. And I was like,
Absolutely.
I don't know if some people heard my recent comedolosophy. I got stopped by the police. They had machine guns. I had no papers. Everyone else would have been, I was about to get arrested. Boom. Broadcast who you are, and boom. And they just all go all funny. All the humans just go all funny because they're following programs.
Yeah.
And you can push your power,
It's funny, going back to the mall story, when I went into the mall, I had this idea of getting something. And as I'm going through there, I can smell the smells and I can see the brainwashing. And so I'm with my son and I just start explaining to him with my voice. I say, look at where we are. It's a massive ant trap and everyone is stuck and being pulled in. And I'm speaking these words. They're coming out of my mouth into the world. And you could start to see people slightly turning their ears towards my voice, and so the voice of truth starts going in, and then you start to see a little bit of a gravitational pull.
You become a beacon. You become an etheric beacon.
Absolutely, a beacon. And so obviously we got into the middle of this mall scenario, and I just had to turn around because you could start to feel it everywhere. But the point is that truth has power, right? That truth has a lot of power.
I mean, we could talk about the Matrix and automatons, non-player characters for hours, but I think we've had a good go at it, and we've got some people thinking.